What's up, Twins fans? It's Tom, and with the Twins off tonight, Thursday, I figured it'd be a good time to do a quick check-in on the 2022 draft class, of course, headed by Brooks Lee. So we're going to run through, talk about these guys, maybe talk about some guys who have disappointed, talk about some guys who have been surprises. I think overall, the thing that's standing out to me is the later round pitchers are kind of the guys that are really catching my attention. But there's also a later round bat that is probably the biggest pop-up prospect in my mind in the entire system this year. So a good thing to talk about. There's a lot of stuff I want to say about these guys. And, with a lot of them playing down in Fort Myers, not a ton of highlights to go over, but Brooks Lee, of course, with AA Wichita, so some highlights of him there. He is holding his own, certainly in AA. Again, a guy who is just a calendar year basically removed from playing college ball at this point. He came in tonight with a 753 OPS for the Wichita Wind Surge. Not as he got off to a hot start, so he's not as hot as he was earlier this year. I know there was some talk about maybe him being in the major leagues this year. I suppose that's still possible, but I think kind of maybe expectations got a little bit out of hand preseason, to be honest. For a guy, he went to Cal Poly, played with his dad, not a big school, very talented guy. Not to discredit his talent, but maybe hasn't had the ton of experience against top pitching. Lee, he's off to a solid start, a 753 OPS again. That is an 812 OPS as a left-handed hitter, against right-handed pitching. So again, an 812 OPS as a left-handed hitter, and just a 538 OPS as a right-handed hitter, so against lefties. So he's struggling on that side. Obviously, it's a very small sample, especially on the left side for him. But that's interesting because he's actually better. He was actually better as a left-handed hitter, as a right-handed hitter. I'm getting this all mixed up. Last year. Basically, he crushed lefties last year. Now this year so far, he's struggling against them. Small sample sizes on both of those, so I don't think there's a concern there. But if you're looking for, kind of scratching your head and wondering why Brooks Lee hasn't hit better this year, I would say that's a part of it, and it's also probably nothing to be concerned about because we've seen him hit pretty well as a right-handed hitter already. In the field, I do think this guy can stay as a shortstop. Not going to be a premium shortstop. More than likely, in most situations, you're probably always going to have a guy who is better than him at shortstop. With the Twins, obviously that's a position that's pretty well filled right now, even with Correa's situation with his heel, whatever. We're not going to get into that. Royce Lewis also there, obviously, as well. But, I don't know, is Brooks Lee going to be traded at some point? Maybe, maybe not. I think just in terms of that line of thinking is what I'm talking about. If you're talking about an outside evaluation team looking at Brooks Lee and trying to figure out where might this guy play, I do think shortstop's on the table. Now, if he has to move to third base, I think he'd be an excellent third baseman. So that is certainly something to consider as well. But that is Brooks Lee, number 8 overall pick. I will say, even though I'm kind of willing to sort of embrace a slower track for him, I think being in AA a year after you're drafted is pretty solid. Pretty solid. But I will say that's hard to say when Zach Neto, who was drafted after Brooks Lee, is already in the major leagues with the Angels and holding his own with the Angels as well. So, fair to point that out. So, is Brooks Lee a disappointment so far? I wouldn't say that, but I would say, he hasn't maybe lived up to the expectations that we were hoping for so far. No reason to degrade his prospect stock. And he's obviously got plenty of time to pick things up. We'll keep an eye on him, of course, playing in AA for Wichita. The second pick, the number 48 overall pick, Connor Prielipp. Not much to say here. He did start one game and then had an elbow scare. He's been ramping back up down in Fort Myers, so we haven't seen him back in a game again for Cedar Rapids. A guy who had a lot of injuries in his prep career, in his college career. Extremely talented, but we'll kind of keep an eye out for him. No new news. I tried to look around to see if there's been anything new on him, and there isn't. Clearly, the Twins are going to be extremely careful with him. I was actually kind of surprised he was on an opening day roster, to be honest with you. I thought that was a really good sign. But obviously to have that elbow scare, not a great sign. So we'll see what becomes of Connor Prielipp. Tanner Schobel, have to say he's been a disappointment thus far. The number 68 overall pick, a later second-round pick for the Twins, the third and final guy who got $1 million bonus from this draft class. Schobel has a 684 OPS, and this is a guy who his bat is kind of his carrying tool, so not great to see him not hitting for Cedar Rapids. He's playing third base and second base in that very crowded Colonels infield right now. So that's Tanner Schobel. Before we go any further, if you're wondering about prospect rankings, I did update my top 50 Twins prospect list, shared that with members. So if you are interested in becoming a member, that starts at as low as $1.99 a month, and all you got to do is hit that join button. Moving on now to the fourth round, Andrew Morris. This guy also hasn't thrown much. He's only made 2 starts for the minor leagues so far. But he is healthy now. So he recently made a start. He's back. So keep an eye out for his name in the box scores. And in his most recent start, he topped out at 96.8 miles per hour, according to the StatCast data from Baseball Savant. Ben Ross was a guy, their 5th round pick. He was a guy who got off to a really nice start this season for Cedar Rapids and has tanked in May so far. He has a 570 OPS in May so far. That is Ben Ross. Another infielder for the Colonels. He's played first base, third base. He's getting some looks in the corner outfield as well. So we'll look for him to get back on track. Again, he had a really nice April, did Ben Ross, but slowing down here. Jorel Ortega, now he is down in Fort Myers, so that's kind of something to keep in mind is which level these guys are at. So he's down in Fort Myers, but he's hitting .297 with a .414 on-base percentage and a .910 OPS this year, playing third base and second base. Now, I've heard his arm is quite good, so I would think that third base is probably going to be his more likely position. Again, Fort Myers, I haven't really gotten a lot of looks at these guys, so that's where we're going to kind of lean on the data and the stats on some of these guys. Kyle Jones is a player who, again, back to that conversation of which levels guys are at. Keep in mind that this guy is up with Cedar Rapids. He started tonight and unfortunately gave up 6 earned runs in 1 inning pitch. He had been pitching pretty well for Cedar Rapids so far. Some of the underlying numbers weren't great. He wasn't missing a ton of bats. But that ugly outing tonight pushes his ERA up to 5.13 for the Colonels. But again, he is up in high A with Cedar Rapids. Moving on down to Zebby Matthews, certainly one of the more fun names in the system, maybe the funnest name in this draft class, Zebby Matthews. He's down at Fort Myers, but he's pitching awesome. The strikeout to walk ratio is incredible. 47 strikeouts and just 5 walks. 47 Ks and 5 walks for Zebby Matthews. That's in 33 2/3 innings pitched, so striking out a ton of guys. He topped out at 96.3 miles per hour in his last outing for Fort Myers, so plenty of velo there. Cory Lewis, though, is probably the best performing pitcher out of this class so far. One of the guys, maybe the guy who would be the Twins, in the mix for the Twins minor league pitcher of the year at this point. He has a 2.67 ERA, a 0.95 whip, 47 strikeouts in 33 2/3 innings for Cory Lewis. That is 12.6 Ks per 9. So he's off to a tremendous start. This is the guy you may have heard of, you might have seen on the channel here, who throws a knuckleball. So that's obviously super duper interesting and fun. Of what I've seen from him, it's mostly a 2-strike pitch too, which is, I think, even more fun. That it's not that he has to have that pitch. It's more of sort of a trick pitch he can go to. But not many guys can command that pitch at all. So even just to break it out as a 2-strike pitch that you're just looking for swings and misses on is pretty cool. 10th round, Dalton Shuffield. You see here he was a senior draftee, senior sign, so he got the lowest bonus, I think, in the entire draft class. But another infielder. He's played left field. It has actually been his primary position so far with Fort Myers, but he's also played second base and third base. He's out to a nice start. He's got a 801 OPS for the Mighty Muscles and is 10 for 10 in stolen base opportunities. But again, this guy is in Fort Myers. This guy is 24 years old already, I believe. So kind of a little harder for me to get excited about him. Glad to see him doing well. And again, the Cedar Rapids infield is really crowded with guys that they like a lot and guys that they want to get playing time. So it's going to be tough for him to move up. But so that was the top 10 rounds. So that's the bonus round. So no, there's nothing to talk about after that, right? No. Actually, no. Andrew Cossetti is actually probably the guy I want to talk about the most out of this draft class right now. He just moved up to Cedar Rapids. He just got his first hit in high A tonight for Cedar Rapids. As you see here, the 11th round pick, he's a catcher. I haven't got to see him catch much, with Fort Myers broadcast not being available. But at the time of the draft, the Twins did have some nice things to say about his defense. And he's been just a monster at the plate, regardless of that. An OPS north of 1,000 for Fort Myers. At the time of his promotion, he led the Florida State League in virtually every offensive category. And if you know anything about that, that league is notoriously difficult to hit in. So very impressive to see him open the year with Fort Myers and just crush it. And that was only with a 17.5 strikeout percentage. So it's not like he's this all or nothing slugger who's striking out a ton. No, 17.5 K percentage, nearly as many walks as strikeouts. The breakout prospect of this draft class, the breakout prospect of this entire system for me so far this season is Andrew Cossetti. Really looking forward to getting some more looks at him in Cedar Rapids. So that is definitely a guy to be aware of. Another one, CJ Culpepper, their 13th round pick. He's also really flashing some impressive numbers. A 2.96 ERA, 1.07 whip, 27 Ks and 24 and a third innings. He also is pitching tonight, and I saw that he had topped out at 97.1 miles per hour in his start, in the early innings of his start so far tonight. And again, that is the StatCast Baseball Savant, Hawkeye, TrackMan data, whatever. That's not just a stadium gun. That's the actual legit tracking that they have there. So again, CJ Culpepper, another name to know. Ben Ethridge and Zach Veen are two guys that I do want to call out here. They're 15th and 18th round picks as guys who are really pitching well out of Fort Myers' bullpen. Neither of them really hikes it up above really 90 very often. Ben Ethridge will flirt with 92, but they're definitely both more secondary guys. Veen, he barely throws a fastball. It's almost all slider changeup. But he's a lefty, so that's kind of the interesting thing about him. But anyway, Ben Ethridge, he has a 1.50 ERA, a sub-1 whip, and Veen has a 0.98 ERA and also has a sub-1 whip. So these are guys, that obviously past the 15th round. These are project guys. These are guys the Twins are going to try to add velo to, and they've had some success with those kinds of guys. So just some names to keep into your back pocket. I also want to mention one guy that hasn't played yet, Amari Daniel, who they drafted out of high school in the 14th round, but he actually got, I think, the 6th biggest bonus of this draft class. So he is a guy just in this draft class to keep in your back pocket. Remember, thank you so much for checking this out. Thank you so much to all the channel members for sponsoring these videos. Here are the premium members, and we will talk again soon.